Odlično. Ovako, lijepo pozdrav svima prije svega. Htjela bi se zahvaliti svima što ste izdvojili svoje vrijeme i danas nam se priključili na našem drugom treningu koji je na temu jačanja spremnosti hrvatskih lokalnih vlasti za digitalizaciju uprave, koju radimo u suradnji sa kolegama iz Serendipity, a evo danas su sa nama i Genoveva i Chris. Oni su prisutni ovdje i bilo kakva pitanja koje imate slobodno možete uputiti njima ili meni, tu smo vama na raspolaganju. Ono što bih htjela prije svega reći je, htjela bih se osvrnuti na prošli webinar koji smo imali i u kojem smo zapravo spominjali Lordima salat. Znači, s obzirom da je bilo dosta upita nakon toga i što me iznimno veseli jer vidim da je doprelo do vas, htjela bih samo ukratko proći još jednom taj proces čisto da ste upoznati s time, zato što je rok 2.6. tako da još uvijek imate vremena za iskaz interesa. Stavit ćemo vam u chat link gdje možete iskazati svoj interes za pristup tom procesu ili se uvijek možete javiti meni na mail. Znači, putem Lordima salata zapravo ispunjavate svoje inicijalno stanje, procjenu svojoj digitalnoj zrelosti. Ono što bih voljela je napomenuti da budete realni, da možda budete čak malo suzdržani u svojim rezultatima, zato što je želja prikazati zapravo stvarno stanje. Na temelju toga se nakon prvog inicijalnog upitnika tog Lordimasa koje možete pronaći i na hrvatskom jeziku, možete se i sljedeća faza je da se ispunjavaju nekakvi identifikacija prioriteta, postavljanje jasnih digitalnih ciljeva i nakon toga se otvara treći upitnik koji je zapravo procjena, odnosno iznošenje vaše IT opreme da se zna uopće sa čime raspolažete i što možete očekivati. Nakon toga vam se uključuju konzultanti koji sa vama izrađuju mapu digitalnog puta koji dobijete unutar nekih tjedan dana i zapravo dobit ćete jedan strateški predložak dokumenta gdje možete u nekom razdoblju od 6 godina si složiti svoj nekakav put digitalizacije. Znači, zapravo je jako korisna stvar. Do sada je bilo onboardano 100 gradova već prošlo kroz cijeli taj proces, 100 gradova je još u toku procesa i još nekih 20 gradova ima priliku se priključiti. Svakako tu bih htjela napomenuti moguće da se priključe i općine i županije kao središta, nevažno u kojem stupnju ste digitalne zrelosti, tako da slobodno iskoristite ovu priliku, zaista je izvrsna i možda je zapravo i dobro vrijeme kada će još malo pa izbori biti u potpunosti završeni, da možete sa vašim čelnicima tijela proći cijeli taj proces i imati jedan lijepi dokument. Ono o čemu ćemo danas razgovarati je, evo samo da pokrenem dalje prezentaciju. Dakle, ovo je faza 2 gdje ćemo započeti, dakle, današnja tema su otvoreni podaci, zašto su oni važni, kako ih koristiti, stvarati nove vrijednosti. Oni se zapravo smatraju nekakvom osnovom za postavljanje i digitalnog blizanaca i onda ćemo čuti i koje sve to alate je Europska unija razvila i dala nama na korištenje u stvaranju tih digitalnih blizanaca. Ovo je nekakva današnja agenda, znači kroz 3 videa ćemo čuti malo više o tome, a ja ću vas uvesti kroz svaku od ovih tema. Prije nego što započnemo sa otvorenim podacima, htjela bi se samo osvrnuti na konferenciju koju smo imali početkom travnja u Zagrebu, gdje nam je gospodin Nikola Modrušan iz Ministarstva pravosuđa, uprave i digitalne transformacije održao jedno predavanje na temu otvorenih podataka. Prije svega nam je spomenuo novi zakon o državnoj informacijskoj infrastrukturi. Znači, prvi zakon je bio donesen negdje 2014. godine i naravno razvoj tehnologije, razvoj mogućnosti i svega što se nalazi sada na državnoj infrastrukturi zahtijevalo je da se donesu nekakve promjene i sada ono što je nešto najvažnije u ovom zakonu je da se omogućilo i tijelima sa javnim vlastima da koriste tu infrastrukturu, ne samo što se tiče servera i tehnologije, već i što se tiče GSB-a i svega ostaloga. Ovaj zakon je donesen, međutim u tijeku su još procedure da se donose uredbe o korištenju i podzakonski akti, tako da kroz ovu godinu će biti još noviteta i svakako pratite i naš rad zato što ćete biti obaviješteni o svemu. Ono što je također gospodin Nikola spominjao, to su otvoreni podaci koji su jedno od prioritetnih područja nacionalne digitalne politike i prema zakonu o pravu na pristup informacijama dužni su sva tijela javne vlasti omogućiti dostupnost podataka za ponovnu uporabu. Ono što je zaista posebno u svemu je zato što se nalazimo u jednom specifičnom vremenu kada su AI alati postali zapravo neizostavan alat u našem svakodnevnom radu i onda ti otvoreni podaci dobivaju još jednu novu vrijednost. Između ostalog, Nikola je bio spomenuo i da će se donijeti nove politike otvorenih podataka i politika upravljanja podacima. Upravo zbog korištenja AI alata potrebno je definirati nekakva pravila na koji način će se dokumenti koji su možda malo po pitanju sigurnosti upitni, na koji način će se koristiti i da li će se koristiti. Tako da moramo paziti na to. Ono što bih još svakako htjela napomenuti pri korištenju otvorenih podataka je koliko oni mogu stvarati novih vrijednosti. I tu mi zaista izvanredan primjer grada Zagreba. Hvala kolegama što su to s nama podijelili u travnju na konferenciji. Znači, osim što oni daju otvorene podatke na korištenje građanima, tvrtkama i tako dalje, za stvaranje nekakvih novih vrijednosti akademskoj zajednici, isto tako i potiču, znači sufinanciraju projekte koje se bave time. Pa evo sad nedavno su objavili i nove model podatak, 3D model podataka grada Zagreba, pa sam samo preuzela sa YouTube kanala, nadam se da neće zamjeriti, jedan kratak video koji bih vam pustila za početak. Ono što mi je jako zanimljivo je koliko se takvi podaci koriste u gaming industriji i koliko je to zanimljivo. Naime, oni koji se bave igrama znaju da Assassin's Creed recimo je mapirao cijeli Notre Dame u razdoblju od nekih preko 5000 sati rada i taj cijeli proces je trajao 14 mjeseci da se prikupe svi podaci, svaka cigla, svaki oblik koji se nalazi na Notre Dameu. No kasnije, kada je nastala ona, nažalost, tragedija, kada je izgorio dio Notre Damea, oni su te podatke ustupili vlastima da mogu rekonstruirati i zapravo izgraditi, ponovo vratiti u početno stanje, sanirati objekt. Pa evo, da ne duljim previše, krećemo dalje sa prezentacijom. Znači, gospodin će nam prezentirati zašto su važni otvoreni podaci, koje su platforme otvorene podataka, pa evo da krenemo.
Hi there, my name is Michael Mulquin and I represent Open and Agile Smart Cities and Communities. And I'm going to be taking you through two short training segments. The first one, as you can see, is relating to implementing open data platforms.
Yes, se čuje.
Places and local digital twins. And then when we've completed that, we'll go on to talk about open architectures and minimal interoperability mechanisms. It's going to be exciting. Of course, with so many topics to cover in such a short time, it means that I won't be able to cover anything in any great detail, but hopefully it will be enough to give you a good sense of what this topic is about, why it's important, and we'll be able to point you to some useful training resources where you can dig into these things in more detail. So let's get into the first training segment. What we're going to be looking at, as you see here, is the roles of open data platforms, data spaces, and local digital twins, and their value to a local community or city. What are the steps to implementing each of these, and how we can use the data space support centre to find the information resources needed. So let's get on with it. Now, open and shareable data are two really important topics related to how we can use all the data that's been gathered in the city. Open data is something that's very familiar to us in cities and communities, because for many years we've been sharing the kind of data that anyone can access, use and share widely on our websites and in other ways for the benefit of our citizens and our businesses. So open data is data that is not in any way sensitive. It's data that is valuable to anybody, and anybody can use and share them as they want. However, shareable data is something different. It's not data that's just open. It's data that I carefully choose to share with specific people and organizations and for specific purposes. It's data that's restricted to certain organizations and roles within those organizations, and therefore has to be managed much more carefully than open data. Now, many cities and communities are already providing useful open data to citizens and businesses, and this is the next step: how we can make use of all the valuable data that's been gathered by the city administration and by many partners within the city to be able to be used to help make sure the city as a whole works really well. Now, let's start with open data platforms, because this is something we know a lot about, we're experts on, and we know that these data is being shared, open data is being shared widely for a number of very good reasons. The first, of course, is about accountability. Local administrations are elected by their citizens. They tax the citizens and the businesses and use that money to provide services. So it is only right that citizens and businesses are able to see who is making the decisions, why they're making them, and how the money that is being collected through local taxation is being used to benefit local people. So accountability is a key reason. It's being open and transparent with how the city administration works. But equally valid is the way that open data is often really valuable in saving staff time. Citizens and businesses have many questions of local authorities. Things like, when is my rubbish going to be collected? Or how can I find out which schools my children are able to go to? So there are many questions that citizens and businesses need to ask of local authorities. And rather than having to phone up and taking lots of staff time or maybe visit the offices, if that information is available in an easily searchable way online, this not only saves the citizen time, but it actually means that local staff in the city administration are not wasting a lot of time on calls and on talking to people face to face. So it saves staff time. Thirdly, and obviously that's implied by what we said just now, that when the right information is made easily available to citizens, then this is a service. It makes things much easier for citizens if they're not having to try and find out what's the right phone number to call or try and get the bus to the local offices of their city council. If they could just go online on their phone or on their computer and get that information quickly and easily, that's a really important valuable service for the citizen. And then, of course, finally, often central government itself is mandating the use of open data for all of these reasons, to make sure that the citizen is able to get the information that it needs from every level of administration. So that's what's happening, and that's been happening for a long time. And many cities are not just content with making their own data more openly available for the citizen and business, but they work with their partners to provide a common open data platform so that there's a one-stop shop where citizens who are interested in finding out useful information about what's happening in their city go to one website and see there all of this information in one place that enables them to get that information easily and quickly. So, what about shareable data? Well, shareable data is needed because a city is managed in different with different systems and different domains. Mobility, utility use, shopping and commerce, health, housing. So there are many different agencies that manage different aspects of the city. And all of these agencies are collecting lots and lots of data increasingly to be able to do, to manage their aspect of the city well. But of course, each of these different systems interact with each other. And therefore, it's important that the data from each of these different systems that's relevant to helping the other systems to be able to do a good job, that data needs to be easily available so that the different other systems in the city can use it to make to help make better decisions about how they're doing their work. For instance, it's very useful if there's a big sports event happening in the city for public transport and other agencies to be aware of that, so they can make proper preparations to make sure that people can travel and all the other things that need to be done. And so it's very important that there's really easy ways for relevant information to be shared between the different systems that are managing the different aspects of the city. And that's why the European Interoperability Framework for smart cities and communities has been set up to provide guidance to cities and communities as to how they can do that. There's lots of really good information that you can see where there's a link on this page to find out more details about the many practical advice and information that's provided to help make this work. But one of the recommendations is about setting up and consolidating interoperable data platforms that's able to integrate and reuse data in cities and communities. That's what we're talking about, and that's something that the European Commission has seen as a really important way that cities can help develop and provide the information that people need. And so that's what we're talking about today. This is something that's really useful, and it's something that's mandated by the European Commission that's aiming at helping the flow of information around local areas, around the European Union as a whole. And so we need to think how to do it. Now, initially, we used to think about data being stored in data warehouses, but some years ago, this was opened up to talking about data lakes, where you'd often find, for instance, a city administration would host a data lake and would get data from its many partners and put all of that data in whatever format it was and so on within that one place, so that whenever anyone needed any of that data, it could be comparatively easily retrieved and used. However, that centralized way of storing data is gradually being replaced by a more decentralized way of doing it, which is often called data spaces. And in data spaces, what you're looking at is where there's a data ecosystem where a particular sector or application bringing together a number of different agencies that are working to deliver some aspect of, for instance, city life, like transport or energy or whatever. So all the different agencies that are aiming to deliver that aspect of city life are able to share data, not by putting it into a central repository, but by opening up, by enabling other people to take data from them and use it under proper terms and conditions. So what's happening is the data is held by the organization that generated it and owns it, but that organization has agreed to make that data available for certain purposes by other agencies within that ecosystem. So, as an example, if you can imagine, there's an area of the city where a lot of construction is going to be taking place, planned, maybe new housing, a retail, office space, or whatever. And there's a real focus on making sure that that new area of development is low carbon. That what you're doing is making sure that in the design and build, and then in the ongoing management of that area, that energy use and the carbon footprint are minimized as far as possible. Well, in order to make sure that you've got an overall understanding of how to reduce the carbon footprint of that area, there are many stakeholders that need to be brought on board, each of whom have different viewpoints, different aspects of the data that need to be made available so that the whole of that construction area can be managed properly to deliver what's needed. And a data space allows that to happen. It allows all the different stakeholders that are involved in designing and building and implementing and managing that new area of the city are able to share the information that helps them, each of them individually, to make the right decisions to get that carbon footprint as low as it could be. And that's just one example of many of where different ecosystems within the city that are aiming to deliver something important are able to share data together to all do a better job in making that work. So the benefits of data spaces are that you're not trying to force people to share data who see no reason for doing it, or make a case or justify why that should happen. A data space starts with an existing group of stakeholders, organisations that all are working together already to deliver on a common aim, and so they can see much more easily the value of sharing data among themselves. And the other great benefit is that they're not losing control, if you like, of their data by providing it in some other place, a central repository, but they continue to maintain control of their data and only allow it to be shared with others when it makes sense for them. So it puts them much more in control of all this valuable data that they're gathering. The challenges, of course, are that that's great, but you still need to work hard at technical interoperability, because all of these agencies may be collecting and managing and holding that data using different formats and different approaches. And the other thing is, it's very important to put in place very strong governance rules to make sure that people, when they take that data from another partner, can be sure that it's reliable, that it hasn't been changed in any way, and if they build any applications on top of it, that they can have the confidence that that data will continue to be provided at the same level of quantity and quality that's needed. So a number of benefits, number of challenges, we just need to make it happen. And in doing that, if you want to make sure that you are really able to benefit from the best experience around, the place to go is the Data Space Support Centre, which provides all kinds of support and help, from documentation, interactive websites, communities, and specific advice for particular issues that you might be interested in. And it's really worthwhile going and looking to see all of the resources that are there available in the Data Space Support Centre to help you to do what you need to do in building the local data spaces that you need to put in place. So that's data spaces. The next step in data sharing are local digital twins. And that's where you're not simply collecting data and sharing data among yourselves, but you're bringing together data about the city in a way that really anchors that data to particular parts of the city, to geographic locations, and enables you to understand what's happening in all the different parts of the city and how all of those things link up together. It enables you to have effectively a digital replica of the physical city, so that you can see what's happening in the real city by using that digital replica to do it, and so that you can model different options and all the rest of it to help you make sure that you're making the most effective decisions for managing the physical city. It's really about three different aspects of the city. First of all, obviously, it's about places and physical assets. It's about being able to describe these things digitally and link them up with IoT devices and video cameras, all kinds of things like that, that are providing real-time or near real-time information about what's happening in all of these different places, and therefore gain a really good sense of what's going on in all the different areas of the city. But an effective local digital twin doesn't stop there. It will also be able to take on board the different processes that are going on, what organisations are doing what, how they're delivering all the different services that are needed. And it will also look at the different kinds of people that live and work in the city. What are their different needs? What are they doing at different times of the day or night? Where are they? And so really getting an understanding of all the things that are going on, both the physical, the processes, and also the people of that city, to make sure that all of these things can be managed comprehensively and together. So a digital twin, it could be a digital twin of the whole city. And here's a very good example that I was able to see in China a few years back, where you can see depicted the whole city, all the different aspects of the city, and get a real sense of what's happening in different places, so that you've got an overall picture of any problems that might be developing and what kind of things might need to be done to solve them. And that means, as you can see, that there's some pictures there of where you've been able to drill down into actual video of particular areas and what's happening. And you can obviously, there's many options for you to use that overall vision from the city to drill down into seeing what's happening in very specific places. And you can even drill down even further, for instance, to actually, here's a traffic light that's not working. And you can find out that particular traffic light, what are all the components in that traffic light, what components are not working, so that when you found out that traffic light isn't working, it's very easy to know precisely what sort of parts are needed and what kind of repairs might be required to get that traffic light working back up again as quickly as possible. So this is the idea of a digital twin, being able to see the whole picture, but also being able to drill down and find out how you can solve any problem that you see in the city as a whole, to be able to solve that problem in a particular place where it's happening. So, as we can see, digital twins can have huge advantages for a city. It can help planning by helping to look at what different options you might have before you build them, and then when things have been built, what might happen to that city, what might the impacts be, and what could you do about it. So this is a great way of putting in place plans, not just for building and construction, but how you can react if there's a disaster or some other issue happens. But it also helps you not just in looking forward, but actually helps you in the day-to-day management of the city, because when it's linked to sensors, actuators, video cameras, and so on, you can get a very good sense of what's happening, where anything might be going wrong at any particular time, what might be going wrong, what might the impact of that thing be if it's not dealt with, what are the kind of things that could be done to mitigate those problems, and what could be done to quickly solve that problem in the first place. And so it's a great way to help you manage the city better. So imagine a flood, for instance, something that's very, very much still in our minds at the moment. So the digital twin of the environment will help you to understand, there's a flood happening. So how quickly are the waters likely to rise? Which roads and transport links are going to be covered first and will become impassable? Which parts of the city are likely to be safe havens for people to go to? And which are ones that people need to evacuate quickly? Where might power outages happen? And where might be good places to store equipment and so on that would help with dealing with the impact of flooding? So that's a really useful aspect of a flood. But not just that, if you've got a digital twin that's really focused on dealing with these kind of disasters, you could also map which organisations are best placed to provide help. What help could they provide? Who manages key buildings that could provide shelter? And how can you make sure that opened up in time? What information is needed by different agencies and so on? And where are agencies that may have staff in key positions that could really help to manage any natural disaster as it's occurring? So that's a very important aspect. And then, of course, when you're looking at people, it's very useful to know what are the most, which people are most vulnerable when any disaster, any problem happens. What's the best way to communicate with the different kinds of people in the city? Where might they be at any particular time? Are they at work? Are they shopping? Are they likely to get home? So that you can make sure you can manage the safety of the different sorts of people in your city, should there be any flood or something like that. So that's just one example of how a digital twin can provide you with really comprehensive and effective solutions for any challenges or natural disasters that might happen in your city. So we've been talking about 4 stages. The open data platform that many city councils will already be very experienced with. How you can open that up so that it's not just holding data that's generated and managed by the city administration, but also can provide a one-stop shop for useful information locally, but where data is gathered from many partners in that one place. The next stage is being able to share sensitive data between partners using a local data space, well-managed data sharing ecosystem. And then the next stage on the line is once you're able to unlock and unleash the data that's being held by these many different agencies, how can you use all of that rich data to help build a local digital twin that can provide the information that managers need to be able to manage that city and community better. So this is the issue really. It's about thinking about these different stages, if you like, of opening up the data that's been gathered with the city, thinking about where is my city, where is my community, and where do I need to go to next to be able to use that data even more effectively.
Evo ga, znači čuli smo sve o otvorenim podacima i čuli smo nekakve osnove o lokalnim digitalnim mobilizacijama, o čemu smo već i prije razgovarali. Gospodin Michael nam je objasnio da što su otvoreni dijeljevi podaci zapravo temelj snažne podatkovne infrastrukture, te kako oni zapravo omogućuju razvoj lokalnih digitalnih blizanaca. Nakon što smo upoznali važnost otvorenih podataka, vrijeme je za praktičnu implementaciju. Znači, vrlo često smo u cijelom ovom projektu i općenito se često spominje interoperabilnost. To je nešto što je zapravo ključno u svemu, a u narednom vidjevu ćete vidjeti kako koristiti minimalne mehanizme interoperabilnosti za izgradnju otvorene referentne arhitekture, što omogućuje učinkovitu razmjenu i korištenje podataka među gradovima i zajednicama. Zašto su minimalni mehanizmi interoperabilnosti poznati pod nazivom skraćenicom MIMS važni? Zato što omogućuju gradovima, općinama i regijama diljem Europe da međusobno dijele i ponovo koriste pametna rješenja. Znači nije nužno da se sve uvijek iznova od nule radi i zapravo tako se i ubrzava digitalna transformacija. Znači kroz standardizirane pristupe zapravo oni olakšavaju razmjenu podataka, razvoj digitalnih rješenja, izgradnju digitalnih ekosustava, što je ključno za uspješnu digitalnu transformaciju gradova i u skladu sa europskim vrijednostima i ciljevima. Znači, ono što sam rekla, dakle smanjuju se troškovi, administrativne prepreke, povećava se sigurnost i kontrola na podacima, a osim toga sudionici dobivaju pristup široj ekosustavu inovacije, što može brže, na taj način mogu brže implementirati nove tehnologije i rješenja. Kroz ove projekte su u raznim gradovima su se razvijala rješenja, međutim cilj je da ta rješenja budu primjenjiva na sve ostale. Pa evo da čujemo dalje nešto o ovome. Gospodin Michael će nas upoznati dalje.
Second bit of training that we are reviewing now, and that's about the value of open architectures and minimal interoperability mechanisms. And that's much more looking at, within the city council, how can you unlock that data, overall, how can you set up the right sort of structures and frameworks to do that, and how can minimal interoperability mechanisms help with that whole process. So we're going to be looking very briefly at the need of an open data architecture. We're going to be looking at how minimal interoperability mechanisms can help. And then we're looking at how the procurement help desk will be able to provide support to our cities and our communities. Let's think first then about the open architecture. So when we're wanting to build a data sharing ecosystem, we need to make sure that it's open. That's not open data, that's about an open architecture. And what we're talking about there is an architecture that allows new components to be added or changed very easily, which may be coming from many different other organizations, companies, agencies, to be able to adjust that ecosystem to deliver all the different kinds of things that it might need to deliver as things change and grow. Now, when we say open, we don't mean non-proprietary, because we know, for instance, Windows and Android are proprietary operating systems, but they're open in the sense that they're designed to allow many other agencies to develop applications that can be built on top of Windows and Android, and can therefore make those operating systems even more flexible and effective, and provide even more options for the users and make the whole thing more valuable. And that's what we're talking about here. It may be that you've outsourced your data ecosystem to a provider that uses proprietary solutions. That's fine, but make sure that whatever solutions they put in place make it easy for you to add in new applications and services to meet the changing needs of your delivered ecosystem. And so the thing to do in all of this is to make sure that you step back and you look at at the way data needs to move through and around the whole city ecosystem to be able to provide the right data to the right places in the right way. And so it's a very important exercise to spend time in thinking, what data do we need to make sure the city can work well? Who owns that data? How can I access it? How can it be accessed? What kind of data is that data? Is it geospatial, IoT? Is it databases? What kind of data is it? And is it open data, or is it sensitive data that needs to be managed in a careful way? So these sorts of questions you need to be asking yourself. And then when you've done that, to think about how can we use that data within our own city administration, and how can we provide that data more easily to all the many other agencies and the citizens who could use it to help their lives run better within the city. So that's the important thing. Really try and take as comprehensive a view as you can of all the data that needs to be moving throughout the city, where it needs to be moving to and where it needs to be coming from. And here's a very simple way of looking at that. But it's just there to give a kind of a start so that you can look at who are my partners, what are the different sector data spaces that are there or need to be there, what data am I getting from central and regional government and so on, what data am I getting from IoT, what data am I getting from social media, how am I drawing that data in to within my own city administration, IT functions and so on, and making it available to the different departments within the city council. And then how can I be providing what's relevant to others in the best possible way to help make sure that that data is really free and is really doing all the kinds of things that can be done. And it is important to do that, because once you've mapped where the data needs to be coming from and where it needs to be going to, then it becomes easy to identify what the barriers are. And that's not a theoretical exercise. This is about going into all the different departments of the city council and to all your partners and so on, and asking, what are the challenges about getting the data you need? Is the data that you're wanting in the wrong format, or are there other restrictions that make it difficult for you to use it? And then once you've done that, of course, then you can start to say, here are all the barriers. Here are where the barriers are and what they are. Let's think about the solutions that can help get rid of those barriers to make sure the data can be properly used. And in that whole discussion, the minimum interoperability mechanisms have a key role in opening up and dealing with the different barriers that you may well identify. So you may say this is a lot of work, and it is a lot of work, but it's well worthwhile spending the time needed to do a thorough, if you like, a collection of information about all of these things, because having done that, then you can be much clearer about what you need to be doing to build on a solid foundation and really get a very active and helpful ecosystem going. And in doing that also, it becomes much clearer about how minimal interoperability mechanisms can help you achieve your objectives. Let's think a bit about interoperability. What is it? Why is it important? Well, interoperability is about where you've got different systems, different partnerships, different agencies, different IT systems that need to be able to share information and work together. And interoperability is about making that happen, making it possible for that information to be shared and operated together effectively in a way that's completely predictable and you can be sure will provide what you want it to provide. Of course, that's not a simple matter. There are many issues you need to tackle. Here's a list of some of them. How to manage personal data, data security, geospatial data, how to make sure that any AI algorithms that are being used use the right data to enable them to make fair and transparent decisions. What about common ways of describing things in data models, data analytics? Lots of different issues need to be looked at when you're thinking about ensuring proper interoperability. And even though standards organizations are doing a great job and are solving individual issues, the different issues are being dealt with by different committees. And therefore, very often, there's problems when you're trying to bridge across between different types of data and so on, in that while each one of them may be standards compliant, there's no obvious and easy way for you to take data that's been built using one set of standards and use it with data that's been built using another set of standards. And so while they're really important and long-term, that's the way forward, we still need other mechanisms to help us be able to make full use of standards-based data. So that's what we're talking about here, that interoperability isn't an either-or issue. Plug and play is great when everything just works. But most often we find when you do your analysis of your existing data ecosystem, you'll find in many instances, a lot of the work of integrating different data is being done manually, spending lots of time of the officers making sure that the different data sets are properly aligned to work well together. And what we're looking for here is what are different tools that we can use to help make that manual work a bit less, to make it just that bit easier to be able to align these different kinds of data. And so that's what we're really talking about here. It's about interoperability that can be put in place with minimal user intervention, taking away as much of the manual work as we can and making as much as possible to be able to be done automatically. So that's what the MIMS really developed for. They started out when cities were beginning the process of using IoT data in particular to develop smart applications. And the idea there was simply to provide some basic tools to help cities gather and use data in consistent ways so that any useful application developed in one city could be easily ported without too much work into another city. But of course, over the years, cities are using data in more and more sophisticated ways. The challenges are changing. There's much more big data. Cities are using, for instance, traffic management systems that are collecting huge amounts of data from every aspect of the city, traffic lights, level crossings, all kinds of things like that, in order to get that really good picture of what's happening. Huge amounts of data of different types need to be brought together. And so the MIMS are continuing to evolve to be able to address the new challenges that cities are facing. We've got 10 MIMS that we've been working on over the last few years. As we've been revising them recently, we see effectively there are two kinds of MIMS. There are foundational MIMS which cover kind of generic issues, if you like, data security, data access, data representation, and so on, that are basic ways of dealing with interoperability between any kind of data. But then we also need to look at particular application areas like personal data management or geospatial data to look at any particular challenge about integrating and aligning data in those areas that needs to be dealt with by more specialist MIMS. And so we're working hard to make sure that there's a sets of tools that will enable you as city administrations to be able to more quickly be able to tackle the challenges and the barriers you find in building and developing your local data ecosystem. The MIMS are built in a very consistent way. This has been standardized through the ITU, the UN Agency for Telecoms, who are one of the three main international standards bodies in the world. And so this has been standardized as a process where you start with a clear objective, you divide that into capabilities, you see what the requirements that are needed are in order to deliver on those capabilities, what are the different optional mechanisms that cities might use to deliver those requirements, and then once we identified what are the different ways that cities are using to meet a common set of requirements, how can we start to bring interoperability between those different mechanisms, and how can we check that the requirements are indeed being met. So the aim of the MIMS is to, by identifying the key capabilities needed for data sharing and translating those capabilities to requirements, then it enables cities to see, here are the different alternatives that we could use. What are the right ones for us? We can see much more easily the pros and cons of the different mechanisms into how well they'll address the particular needs that we have. But it also, once we've been able to describe these different mechanisms in a common way, we can much more easily find out what commonalities there are, whether, for instance, these different approaches still use some basic standards that are in common, as an example, or whether there's some common interfaces that we can identify across which open APIs, application programming interfaces can be used to help bring data from different kinds of sources to being able to be used for particular purposes. So this is a really important thing that we need to be doing in developing the BIMs, and with your help, we can make sure these tools are precisely the kind of tools that you need. So the value they provide is it enables you to much more easily share and reuse the data that comes from partners that may use different approaches. It makes it much easier for you to compare and contrast the value of different approaches offered by vendors and procurements, and it makes it easier to develop a path to change technical approaches because you've got a clear sense of what you need to achieve. So if that technical approach is no longer the best way of doing that, because you're clear about what you need to achieve, it's much easier to work out how to change that with another different way of delivering that to that same objective. And the procurement help desk can have a key role here in helping you put all of these many different complicated things into practice. They're developing procurement templates that will first of all provide you with the opportunity to systematically capture functional and technical requirements that you need to address when you're procuring a product or service related to data space of the local digital twins. And in each of those procurement templates, there's a section which addresses how the MIMs can help with that whole process. So that will also help you be able to much more easily use and get the gain value from the MIM and interoperability mechanisms. And as part of all of this process, we are developing a set of self-assessment and technical tools to help also to be able to check that the products and services are offered by vendors comply with these requirements, and so that you can confidently procure them and bring them into your data ecosystem and be sure that they'll work properly. And these are going to be incorporated as well into the procurement templates to enable vendors to be able to demonstrate to you that their products and services are indeed the kind of things that you need within your local data ecosystem. So hopefully this has given you a really good sense of the importance of that open architecture for your data sharing ecosystem and how the MIMs can help you address the key issues, the key barriers that may be getting in the way of sharing that data properly. And the fact that these MIMs are based on existing standards, and so by implementing them, you're, if you like, putting in place a great foundation that you can continue to build on in the months and years to come. So I hope this has been useful. If you want to find out more about the MIMs Plus are what the MIMs, if you like, focused on the European context, and you can look on the Living in the EU website and find out the latest version of the MIMs so that you can get the detail of what's needed. But of course, you can also come to us in Open and Agile Smart Cities, and we'll be delighted to help you see how MIMs can be part of your key strategies in delivering, using data to deliver what your citizens and what your businesses, what your organizations need in your city and in your community. Thank you very much indeed.
Evo, hvala gospodinu Michaelu što nam je malo približio više o otvorenim podacima i o lokalnim digitalnim blizancijama i kako je sve to skupa povezano i koje sve alate je Europska komisija financirala da se stvore i koje su pruženi vama na besplatno korištenje. Dobili ste pristup za MIMS-ima u slučaju da nešto niste sigurni ili ne možete pristupiti, slobodno se možete također javiti, a kasnije na kraju prezentacije ćemo još postaviti i linkove na sve alate. I ono s čime bismo danas htjeli zaključiti, a to je zapravo fokusirat ćemo se na konkretne alate i resurse. Gospodin Alex će nam predstaviti EU Local Digital Twin Toolbox, koji je zapravo skup otvorenih alata i rješenja kojima gradovima omogućuje bržu i učinkovitiju digitalnu transformaciju u skladu sa europskim standardima. Local Digital Twinbox je inovativna platforma, ona je razvijena u sklopu europske inicijative Living in EU s ciljem podrške gradovima i zajednicama u digitalnoj transformaciji. kao što i samo ime navodi, omogućuje stvaranje digitalnih dizajnaca gradova, odnosno virtualnih replika stvarnog urbanog okruženja, koji se kontinuirano ažuriraju sa stvarnim podacima, poput prometa, kvalitete zraka, potrošnje energije i drugih relevantnih informacija. Vidjet ćete jednu jako zanimljivu prezentaciju i prikaz jednog stvarnog rješenja, pa predlažem da pogledamo dalje.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Moreau and I'm delighted to guide you through this session about the EU Local Digital Twin Toolbox. Today, we'll explore the concept of local digital twins, understand what the EU LDT Toolbox is, and discuss its benefits for cities across Europe. By the end of this session, I hope you'll have a clear picture of how this toolbox can help your city plan smarter and build a more sustainable future. The goal of this session is simple: to highlight the role of the EU LDT Toolbox as a suite of tools that enable cities to create interoperable local digital twins for better decision-making. We'll also emphasize how this toolbox differs from operational tools you might already be familiar with. Let's start by defining a local digital twin. As described by the livingin.eu initiative, a local digital twin is a virtual representation of a city's physical assets. It uses data, analytics, and sometimes machine learning to create simulation models that reflect real-world conditions and changes. However, it's important to note that a local digital twin by itself is just a representation. It's like a map without the tools to act on the insights it provides. This is where the EU LDT Toolbox comes in, and we'll discuss that shortly. A local digital twin is crucial for cities because it lays the foundation for simulating scenarios and planning for a more sustainable future. Now, let's focus on the EU LDT Toolbox. This toolbox is not a local digital twin itself, but rather a set of tools designed to help cities create, enhance, and use local digital twins effectively. The EU LDT Toolbox enables cities to manage and acquire data, ensuring all relevant city data is organized and accessible, simulate and model scenarios, testing ideas like traffic plans or emission zones before implementing them. Connect city systems, integrating with existing platforms to provide a comprehensive view of urban dynamics. Visualize outcomes, helping city officials and citizens understand the impact of decisions through clear, actionable visuals. In essence, the toolbox is a simulation platform, not an operational tool. It's designed to help you plan smarter, not to control systems in real time. To clarify further, the EU LDT Toolbox is a resource for planning and decision-making. It's built to be user-centric, interoperable, and compliant with EU standards. However, it's not an operational tool, a ready-made product, or a replacement for your city's existing systems. Think of it as a planning assistant rather than an operational manager. When designing the EU LDT Toolbox, we focused on three main principles to make sure it truly works for cities across Europe. 1. User-centricity. The toolbox is built with cities in mind. It's designed to adapt to the specific needs of urban managers, planners, and decision makers, whether your city is just starting its digital journey or already advanced. 2. Standards, compliance, and interoperability. Everything in the toolbox aligns with EU regulations, such as data protection and AI ethics. It also uses minimum interoperability mechanisms, or MEMs, to ensure it works seamlessly with your city's existing systems and promotes collaboration across borders. 3. Open source technology. The toolbox is built on open source foundations, making it transparent, flexible, and easy to adapt. While open source is prioritized, it's also compatible with proprietary solutions, giving cities the freedom to choose what works best for them. These principles are all about making the toolbox practical, accessible, and ready to support your city's digital transformation. Its benefits are clear. You can simulate scenarios to test policies and avoid costly mistakes. It provides a common framework, ensuring compatibility and collaboration across cities. And it adapts to the unique needs of each city, regardless of its digital maturity. The toolbox addresses several urban challenges, including mobility planning, optimizing traffic flow and public transport. Energy efficiency, reducing waste and designing low-emission zones. Urban health, monitoring pollution for healthier environments. Sustainability, meeting emissions targets through effective strategies. As we approach the end of the project in June 2026, let's take a look at what the first version of the EU LDT toolbox will deliver. You can expect a fully developed toolbox with 10 modular tools, an EU LDT toolbox website serving as the central hub for resources and access, a marketplace where cities can find additional tools, algorithms, and resources to enhance their digital twin capabilities, an EU-wide database, specifically the European Building Database, for sharing and accessing city data, 6 AI models tailored to help cities simulate and predict scenarios effectively, a use case focused on low-emission zones, providing a practical example of the toolbox in action, 6 pilots currently being defined that will test and validate the toolbox in real-world settings. And finally, once the project concludes, the EU LDT toolbox will be transferred to the European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, EDIC. The Cityverse EDIC will ensure the continued development, maintenance, and long-term sustainability of the toolbox, supporting cities across Europe as they adopt and implement local digital twins. This slide gives an overview of how the different tools fit into the EU LDT toolbox and what each one is responsible for. Each tool plays a specific role in supporting cities to create and use local digital twins effectively. We won't go into detail just yet, but later in the presentation, we'll explore each tool in depth and see how they contribute to the overall functionality of the toolbox. Implementing a local digital twin might sound like a big task, but it can be broken down into 3 simple steps. 1. Get the right infrastructure. Start by ensuring your city has the basic infrastructure needed to support a local digital twin. This could mean setting up data systems or upgrading existing ones to handle the data needed. 2. Build your team and define goals. Assemble a team of experts to install the toolbox and identify the key challenges your city wants to address. If you're still defining your goals, this is the perfect time to create a transformation plan, to prioritize actions, and figure out where simulations can make the biggest impact. 3. Create or customize simulators. Finally, use the marketplace to find algorithms or tools that fit your needs, or develop your own simulators using the EU LDT guidelines. This step ensures the toolbox is tailored to your city's specific challenges and opportunities. By following these steps, your city will be well on its way to creating a local digital twin that supports smarter, more informed decision-making. Let me illustrate this with a specific example, implementing a low-emission zone. Now, let's bring this to life with a real example, one that many cities across Europe are already working on, low-emission zones, or LEZs. The challenge is clear. How do we reduce vehicle emissions and improve air quality? Cities need solutions that are not just effective, but also practical and adaptable. But making big changes to traffic flow and regulations without knowing the impact can be risky. This is where the EU LDT toolbox makes a difference. Solution design. First, the toolbox allows cities to simulate and test different LEZ setups. Should we restrict certain vehicles? Change traffic patterns? The toolbox helps visualize the effects before any changes are made. Feasibility analysis. Once different options are tested, cities can compare the results to find the most effective approach, ensuring that decisions are backed by data, not just assumptions. Continuous monitoring, but it doesn't stop there. The toolbox also helps track pollution levels over time, allowing cities to refine and adjust their strategies as needed. Documentation and reporting. Finally, the entire process is recorded and structured, ensuring compliance with regulations and providing valuable insights for future urban planning. So, instead of trial and error, the EU LDT toolbox empowers cities to plan smarter, reduce emissions effectively, and create a healthier environment for everyone. Now let's go step by step through how a city can use the EU LDT toolbox to implement a low-emission zone, LEZ, from gathering data to making informed, impactful decisions. The city starts by defining the goal. A city aims to pilot a low-emission zone, integrating environmental and socio-demographic analyses to make data-driven urban planning decisions. The first step is collecting historical and real-time data on air quality, traffic, and other urban factors. However, cities often face gaps in critical data, like missing traffic sensor information. When essential data is unavailable, like real-time traffic flow, the toolbox's synthetic data generator steps in. This tool creates realistic, AI-generated data to ensure that missing information doesn't limit decision-making. Once the data is processed, the city can create, train, and run AI models to predict how different changes might affect traffic and pollution. The toolbox provides ready-to-use AI models, which can be customized to match the city's unique characteristics. These models help predict air quality, traffic flow, and even the best locations for implementing a low-emission zone. Running scenario simulations. With the AI model set up, the city can now simulate different scenarios to assess their impact. For example, restricting passenger vehicles in certain areas, limiting delivery trucks during peak hours, closing main roads to reduce emissions. The toolbox evaluates how each of these decisions would affect both air quality and traffic flow. Once the simulations run, the results are visualized in a dynamic way within the toolbox. This allows city officials to immediately assess the impact of each decision, helping them understand how different restrictions will affect both mobility and pollution. Implementing a low-emission zone affects daily life, so it's important to involve citizens in the process. The toolbox enables community participation, allowing residents to provide feedback and suggest improvements before final decisions are made. With all this information, the city can now create a comprehensive transformation plan, outlining the best strategies to improve air quality, reduce congestion, and enhance the overall quality of life. If the results don't match expectations, the city doesn't have to start from scratch. They can simply go back, adjust parameters, and test alternative scenarios until they find the best approach. By using the EU LDT toolbox, cities gain not just a clear plan, but also the flexibility to refine and adapt their strategies. If an initial solution doesn't work as expected, the process allows them to retest, optimize, and fine-tune decisions, ensuring that policies are truly effective before being implemented in the real world. This approach empowers cities to make informed, data-driven decisions that lead to real improvements in urban life, while always keeping sustainability and community needs at the center. As we've seen today, the EU LDT toolbox is more than just a set of tools. It's an opportunity for cities to rethink how they plan, test, and implement solutions for a better future. With the power to simulate scenarios, anticipate challenges, and make data-driven decisions, cities can take bold steps towards sustainability, efficiency, and improved urban life. And the best part? This toolbox is designed to be accessible, adaptable, and built for collaboration. But innovation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens when cities, experts, and communities come together. That's why we're excited to keep growing this ecosystem and working alongside you to shape the cities of tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to stay updated, learn more, or connect with others working on smart city solutions, scan the QR codes on the screen to follow us on LinkedIn and X, formerly Twitter. Let's keep the conversation going and work together to build a smarter, more sustainable future.
Nadam se da ste čuli vrlo inspirativno predavanje, da ste vidjeli koliko ovaj alat može biti koristan vašoj zajednici. Ponekad neka rješenja koje zamišljamo ili nije moguće provesti, ili su preskupa, ili su rizična. Na ovaj način stvarno dobivate jedan izvrstan alat u kojemu možete testirati sve nekakve vaša pitanja i znači najbolje rezultate. A ono što je najbolje od svega, vaši građani dobivaju razloge zašto je neko rješenje doneseno, jer je to temeljeno na podacima, na objektivnim stvarima i zaista je odličan način kako surađivati. Evo, vrijeme je sad za pitanja i odgovore. Da li netko od vas možda želi nešto komentirati, postaviti pitanja, bilo što? Chris, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for attending today. As you know, the whole purpose of these sessions, the online trainings, are to serve as a structured way for Croatian communities to advance in your digital transformation journey, which hopefully will then culminate into the implementation of local digital twins. And if they're already local digital twins in the process of the Croatian municipalities, helping to see the different structures that are available. So we've already learned in the first online training session a little bit about tools that exist, right? We talked about Lordimas, we talked about the online procurement help desk, which we would like to remind everybody that June 2nd is the deadline. So we hope municipalities are able to join this wonderful initiative while it's still free. So again, June 2nd is the deadline, and I've added the link in the chat. So we talked a bit about those tools, and then with the roadmap in hand from phase 1, now phase 2, today's training, it was really more about the technical implementation of digital strategy. So we talked a bit about, with Michael Mulquin, the different infrastructure, right? And the different tools that are needed to develop local digital twins. And today's training really highlights the role of open data platforms, of data spaces, about memes, minimal interoperability mechanisms. And what we just saw with Alex Moreau is the EU LDT toolbox, right? Which is a collection of open source resources to help support the cities in deploying the interoperable, scalable digital solutions. So we hope that you guys in today's training had a good insight into what is available. As there are no questions right now, I want to also really thank you, Francesca. Perfect. I want to really encourage everybody to attend our last and third training session, which will be talking about empowerment. This is a very popular session because it's about activating support networks and, of course, the very popular funding opportunities. So with a foundation in place, phase 3 or the last training is supposed to really empower your community to take action through these networks and through the funding opportunities. So you'll learn a little bit about living in EU and about different resources that are available. So we'll be adding in the link right now. I'm going to add the link to the knowledge base. My colleague Genoveva, which is in the call, was kind enough to already add the presentations from last session and from today. So you're able to take a closer look. You'll also see the link for the feedback form. So we would love to hear a little bit from you guys to see what you thought of today's session and about the last session. And before we go, I just want to give a really big thank you to Francesca. There's the feedback form. Thank you, Francesca. I want to give a big thank you to Francesca from the Associate and as well the Association of Cities in the Republic of Croatia, and Dario, of course. Thank you for the wonderful leadership and for hosting the hybrid session on April 9th, which was in Zagreb, the first session and today's session, and of course the future session on the 11th of June. So I see there's a question or a hand that was raised. Do we have a question?
Ako ima neko pitanje, slobodno postavite. Možete uključiti mikrofon ili ako želite možete pisati u chatu. Kao što je Kris rekao, ja vas pozivam isto da ispunite
Too many questions.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if that's good that you have questions. That means you guys are thinking and you're implementing it. So I've included Francesca's email as well as my email in the chat. If you're a bit shy and you're afraid of asking the question right now, please email us. We're happy to help you, happy to point you in the right direction and give you more resources. So please reach out if you have many questions.
That's right. We're here for you. Thank you, Genoveva. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for helping us with this collaboration. Hvala svima na vašem vremenu i na što ste se priključili. I kao što je Chris rekao, evo posljednji webinar nam dolazi na red 11. lipnja gdje ćete čuti završnu fazu treninga koja je posvećena podršci i umrežavanju. Hvala vam puno svima. I čujemo se, vidimo se 11.6. i pozivam vas, oni koji želite, ispunite svoj iskaz interesa do 2.6. zaista možete dobiti vrijednu podršku naših kolega iz Europske komisije. Hvala vam, ugodan dan, pozdrav.
Pozdrav.
Denja.